Well, welcome everyone to Traction Thursdays. Is the mic on? Yeah, okay, great. So today we are privileged to have Jim Belilove with us. He is, as I think all of us know, a legendary entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and this has really been a great experience, hasn't it? I think we've been going for a couple of months. We started with a few people, and we have a lot more people, and I think we're filled completely through the end of May with speakers. So today we're going to hear about Jim's experience as an entrepreneur, and he also made a really, really, really good offer. He said he would be the questioner in chief for any entrepreneur. He said, what I can do is ask really good questions. So you might want to think about engaging him for a question asking session or answering session. So Jim, over to you.
Okay. So this has nothing to do with farms or food. It's about entrepreneurialism, because that's roughly what I am, pretty much all the time. And I wrote out some stuff, but we'll just see. Just I'm thinking that I can tell stories, and stories are kind of what we're made of. That's what we end up, is we are our stories. So it'd be useful maybe for entrepreneurs to hear from an entrepreneur that's had lots of occasion to generate stories. So that's my presentation, as long as you're good with that. And I did agree with what Bob said. My offer is really just for the fun of it, just because I love Fairfield, I love entrepreneurs. Anyone that would want to be have a questioning period. I'm really probably best at questions, and so I can probably get to whatever the issues are of the business or business plan and may be helpful. Right. And you probably have to come up with a cup of coffee or a lunch or something like that, and we'll do it. Okay. I think entrepreneurs make the world go round. I'm talking little towns, big towns, countries all around the world. That's where an awful lot of stuff starts, is someone, right idea, I can make this happen. It also includes I'll put myself at risk to make it happen, and that's what an entrepreneur is. I think they make the world go round. And then God's checking all this out, and he said, I want entrepreneurs. I need entrepreneurs because it's the creative process. The way God makes it so he gets so many entrepreneurs is he doesn't let you really see what it entails. So it's a little hidden behind the veil. Okay, I'm always cheerful, and I'm happy to see people that have that sort of spirit. However, the giant ogre in the room of entrepreneurialism, that so many fail. I don't care, they do calculate different ways, but some are, it says 80% are gone in 3 years, 90% are gone in 10 years, whatever. It's something like that. And it's a major thing, and it is the truth. And of course, a lot of us get back up and go at it again, so it doesn't mean you're not. Entrepreneurialism is done, but it's the ogre, and we don't want to be in that category. Whatever we can do to not be in that 90% would be good. Okay, so I hopefully these stories will they're a little bit intimate to me, so you kind of get to know me. I'm not trying to pump myself up. You'll see I don't come out all that great in some of these stories. Maybe this will be entertaining, and maybe it'll be instructive, or maybe some situation that I encountered might be similar to something you're facing or something of that sort. Okay, so if we have time, I'm going to talk about 4 entrepreneurial ventures I'm in and kind of give the outlines and what happened and some of the main turning points. And I think nothing goes smooth when you're starting something and trying to make something significant happen. And that's sort of the lesson of this. So my first venture I'll talk about was actually in Boston. The other 3 that I'll talk about all took place here in Fairfield. And you might know some of the people, but I will spare the innocent and I'll spare the guilty. I won't tell who else I'm referring to, but in Boston, I had it was not my money, I was not at risk, but I was put in charge of a new division of a listed company. And I was pretty young at the time, maybe 30. I thought that was the greatest thing. I thought they had it going, but it wasn't making a profit, it wasn't doing well. And so I thought this would be just great. Within 6 months, I'd have this thing singing, I'd have everything working great, and meanwhile, they had already developed the next world beater product. So it was in a box, and it was developed as a big machine. And I sold the hell out of it, and I was actually pretty good at that. And I sold hundreds of them. Turned out that it was buggy. So one lesson here. Just be sure the products are not buggy, because you get them in the customer's hands. And I have one anecdote. A customer was kind of a long-term customer of the division, and we had shipped him a product, and he was all excited about it, and he essentially an accessory on his machine. And after working with him for 3 months or whatever, he calls up and says, "I hate you. I really hate you. I hate you and your company. I hate your machine. I'm going to take it in my truck down to the International Machine Tool Show, and I'm going to put it in front, and I'll put a sign with your name on it, and I'm going to run over it with my tractor." So that was the buggy machine. So it's not a good thing. Probably the more fundamental thing I learned here, and this was me being a kid, I was just excited to do it. I couldn't tell this machine was buggy. I probably could have got clearer quicker, but it wasn't in my radar. I just thought I had a nice machine. It was, $20,000 item. Seemed to work mostly when in the factory, but the other thing was this was an accessory for a machine called a mechanical press brake. Mechanical press brake was the way you bent metal. You made desks and doors and cabinets and all that. And this was going to go on the mechanical press brake. It was going to be an electronic computer that would control it and make it much more productive. And that was a wonderful bit of market research that showed 90% of all press brakes out there were mechanical. What it didn't, and so that'd be a great accessory to make your old machine more productive. And then what it didn't reveal was that 90% of all the new sales were hydraulic press brakes, for which this accessory didn't work. So I guess my real lesson for that one, it's a good lesson. If you have a buggy machine and you ended up with the wrong market target, it doesn't matter how hard you work, how fast you run, how much you try to make that work, it doesn't work. And you can't make a business out of it. And that's a big lesson for a 30-year-old entrepreneur. Okay, so then here we have, I don't know if any of you were around town, we had a company called Global Holonetics. And anyone here? We got a few. Anyway, this was a great Fairfield startup. It was, probably don't know this guy, David Clark, who was a student here. And he had the biggest vision, the biggest brain, the biggest ideas. And at the time, optical technology was being very hot. And this was a time when fiber optics were being laid. Gigantic bandwidth, gigantic the ability to multiplex them, and it was changing communications. Well, he had been, being a smart, visionary kid, he had been following a technology called optical computing. Now that's a completely different thing than optical fibers, and it was going to use the properties of light in a wavefront generated by a laser through a programmable diffraction grating to actually do mathematics, to actually, when the light diffracts, it's very precise, and if you can sense it, you've actually got a computer that was gigantically powerful. When you do 2 and 3 dimensions at the speed of light, it's altogether different than electrons on chips and all. Anyway, it sounded great. I was recruited and put in charge of that. I guess and that succeeded to some degree. I was the manager. I was needing to make things happen, or need to develop technology, need to make a machine and sell some machines. And I think the biggest bugaboo with this one was it was overfunded. So he had somehow written a business plan that was so beautiful that he got $5 million put in front of him, which would be spent here in Fairfield. By the time I showed up, we had a facility, we had equipment, and we had a whole team of very high-class engineers, some of who still live here, but most of whom left. But they'd been recruited, flown in, given real-world salaries, so this was, and there was no way at the burn rate with that staff of 20 senior engineers that this invention really was likely to turn the corner and get anywhere. So another great entrepreneurial lesson, overfunding. Now, who ever heard of that? It was too much, too fast. It developed a nut that couldn't be supported. And nevertheless, we did we got a machine made. It was pretty good. We put it in trade shows. It was an inspection machine. So we got to inspect candy bars, cigarettes, and acid tablets and beer cans. Anything that was going so fast on the production line that the digital technology couldn't inspect it. So it was kind of a beautiful thing. And that, anyway, so because we were published, because we actually got an award for the paper of the year from the Vision Society, we got prospect, we got acquirers snooping around. They all came to Fairfield, it was great. And it was very flattering to think, and they looked at it, and here was another great lesson. We had investors who didn't know much. They were overseas. They just thought this was a great idea. And we had managed to get the attention of a guy named Shelley Harrison, who was the inventor of Symbol Technologies. He was the inventor of the barcode. So this was in our optical range, and he could see ways to use it. He came out here, gave us a hell of a nice offer, I thought. And the overseas people go, oh, that's not enough. This thing's worth way more than that. And they told them to get out. So we were managing it here from knowing what we were doing, and we recommended they take the deal, and I would call it arrogance. Ignorance and arrogance went together in this case. And we ended up with a sale of the technology to DuPont Imaging Company, but it really wasn't nearly on as good of terms, and they didn't have any way of commercializing it, and I think it still sits in a warehouse somewhere. So, the kind of a near miss for a really interesting technology. I did have an epitaph for this one, which was, the vision was also too big for the world world's technology, because you had to have devices that went into it, devices that went out of it, and it was doing the calculating. But anyway, 100 years ahead of its time. So someday we may see this technology launched, but well, I had another kind of good, this is a good lesson for in the mix for entrepreneurs. I had negotiated a nice venture capital deal for this, and it probably took me 6 months or 9 months to get a deal on the table. It's a medium-sized venture capital, but we're talking several $1 million. And I kind of went to Boston. He said, the deal's approved, you can close it, come on by. And I get there, and the guy that I've been dealing with, he said, well, actually, this is my last day with the company. I'm leaving for somewhere else. Nothing against the company, but your deal will still go through. Here's another guy who can handle it for you, okay? And then he goes, but I would not advise you to take it. Here's the guy that's negotiated the deal with me for 6 months, thinking the technology was good. He said, don't take it. Advice to me, not advice to his company. I said, what the hell, a couple of $1 million. And he said, well, here's how we do business as a venture capital. We quickly figure out of 10 deals that we make, we quickly figure out that 6 are kind of not going to work. They're going to struggle, and we're not all that smart about it or all that fair about it, but once we sense trouble, we just try to get rid of them. If that's you, that's not good. 2 or 3 of them might show some signs of working, and we just flog them mercilessly to see if they're going to work or not. And then you get one that's probably going to be a shot, and then we got to make that pay for all the ones that we lost. So he told me, he said, that's not a good place to be. I wouldn't want to be there for you. Now, a lot of people take venture capital. A lot of it works, but it is a cautionary tale that I encountered in that one. And then we have another. Okay, so I guess I'll take any questions on any of this, but it's probably a little mysterious. But in a box, it was a high-tech thing, and it really kind of did some cool stuff. But, the lessons are appropriate for all of us that start ventures and have to finance and have to sell them. An awful lot of ventures will get sold, and they should get sold because you've created the value in the creation process. And then, you're a creative visionary person. You don't want to sit and someone else can work it better once you get to that stage, or at least that is my thinking. Okay, now I can talk about my friendly Creative Edge Corporation, which I basically was a founder. There were some other rudiments of it, but basically founder. And I got a technology. It was called water jet, super high pressure water. So a wonderful thing. I fell in love with the technology. It could do kind of anything. It cut metals without heat. It cut stone without breaking it. It would cut glass without scratching it. It was brand new, and I actually didn't, but as a business, it was altogether new sort of product into unknown markets. So a lot of times when you're inventing something, it's a new product that goes into a market you know about, or it's a market you know about and you invent a new product. Well, this was neither. I'm saying I took the leap knowing that, but that's a leap. Otherwise, you're kind of thinking, you got to be thinking the other way. So we sold the hell out of it, whatever we could find to do. And one of the great things we found it would do was cut titanium. Well, what good's that? Well, it turned out this was the heyday of the early hip implant, artificial hips, which are made of titanium. We found our way to people that made those. Turned out titanium is the strongest, lightest metal. It does not like heat, and it's also very hard to machine. So they hired us, really almost all the majors, which was Smith and Nephew and forgetting them now, but there's half a dozen people that made the hip stems, and we had contracts with all of them. This was going to be the greatest thing. It turned out for several years, Creative Edge was the biggest buyer of titanium in Iowa and Illinois, short of Chicago. Anyway, we were kind of doing a big business. And we had day and night we were making it. Anyway, without me knowing it, without me thinking about it, somewhere in the background, they devised a new technique, a new technology, which was made me obsolete, essentially. And they did it by casting. And anyway, the details aren't important, but they had a new technique which was much better and completely ended our business. And one by one, they'd stop ordering. And I often think, well, I needed to know that. We couldn't have supplied the thing. We couldn't have supplied the thing that was substituting, but at least would have let us know that we can't rely on that. So I'm thinking, well, I was not a good enough schmoozer. And schmoozer means getting to know the customer, getting to know the industry or the titanium people, and somehow over lunch or some beer or whatever, someone's going to give me a clue that this change was coming and you ought to watch out. I didn't think I needed to. Obviously, I did need to. But you don't know how to do it. You don't know who's going to tell you or how they're going to tell you, but I just wasn't good at it. And I couldn't drink, and I really couldn't stay out late and go to things. So that was part of that was part of that story, and it disappeared. So it was the end of that part of Creative Edge. Another very similar things happened in that company. We got word we were cutting tiles, and it turned out some of the floor tiles, particularly ones going to Home Depot and Lowe's, giant markets, they needed to be trimmed. Water jet was a great way to trim them. And they had to fit them in the box and had to fit right. And anyway, it was sort of a uh-oh moment. I finally negotiated the price, let's call it Friday. On Monday, there were 6 semi-trucks lined out outside the factory with the tiles because they couldn't sell to their big clients unless they had these ones trimmed. And they never stopped flogging me as far as, when are you going to get done? Here's 10 more trucks. Let's get more machines. And we ran 24 hours a day. We did 3 shifts. We bought all the machinery we could. My staff, the people that worked for us, did a wonderful job of getting machinery online. We hired everyone in town that was at least employable and some that weren't employable, and we had 150 people. And it was a big juggernaut for a while. We would load the trucks out, they'd come in, and we probably worked for the 4 biggest tile companies. Well, honest to God, the same exact thing happened. It turned out they were using us as a stopgap until they worked out their process. So what it was they couldn't make smaller ones in the same ovens because they would get hotter and turn color or whatever. That was their problem. They didn't really tell me that, and I didn't do enough chatting and smoozing and drinking, whatever was going to be required to see it coming. So all of a sudden, that was over. Okay, so that's kind of shocking. Another deal about Creative Edge was it was very wonderful. It was very charming. We made great industrial things. We made great artistic things and public art, and everyone was kind of in love with it. And so we had investor group bought in. I thought that was the greatest thing. They had real money. They seemed to love us. And I remember one day they were, so we need some more management. You know, it's kind of like, oh, Jim, you're this creative entrepreneur and you did all this stuff, but we need some real management. Okay? And so they hired like 5 professional managers with suits, offices, marketing manager, accounting manager, production manager, general manager, right in this big organization chart. And go, hey, where am I? Where am I on that chart? So I was not in the plan. Okay. And these people were not dumb people. They had good credentials. They had good background. And they didn't know they didn't. Truth was, I was the secret sauce of making this thing happen through all the tribulation of getting it going. And so they, roughly speaking, wasted about $7 million and gave it back to me. And that took about 3 years. And that's a syndrome that has happened more than once. Secret sauce is lost. They think they're going to have the money. They think they're going to put the resources. It's now going to be run in a more coherent way. Okay, good lesson, right?
Can you describe your secret sauce?
No, it was me having done this for, 15 years, day and night. And I knew how to sell it, I knew how to present it, I knew how to make, in this case, I knew how to make the machines work day and night. So, but most of the entrepreneurs, it's like that. They are the secret sauce because they created it. And they know what, and the other guys are not stupid, but it's going to take them quite a while, even if they had the spark. They don't necessarily have the spark even, but I remember we were hiring one of them, and they was a county manager, and I said, well, they let me interview everybody to make sure I thought they're okay, and she was great. She was a very good accountant. I said, why do you want to work here? And she said, well, I just want to have some stability in my life. And I started laughing because that was the last thing that we were offering. Okay, so there's some things to think about here. And my fourth, venture was also probably about 10 or 15 years, was senior care assisted living properties. And to an entrepreneur, opportunity is kind of everywhere. You can see it everywhere. You can see if it's for real or not for real. And here we have Ginger's mom who needs a senior care facility. And there isn't one that we're at all impressed with here. And we go see the godmother of Sunnybrook was Betty Howell, half saint and half, she worked day and night, so she's half saint, half. And we went to her house on 32nd Street, and she had, I think, 8 people and 8 seniors in the house she was taking care of. Lovely, okay. And she lived there, she cooked, she was very, very devoted, she loved everybody. She actually had every resident had a bell. And each one had a different bell, so she would know. So when they rang the bell, she would know who she needed to attend to. Okay, so we go in. Geez, Jim and Ginger, we'd love to take care of your mom, Ginger, but we have a 2-year waiting list. Can't. Well, what's the greatest thing for an entrepreneur to hear? 2-year waiting list. And that wasn't but a few days, and I'd agreed to build a modern facility for her. And that's how that opportunity got started. So you're on deck for the... Anyway, I was attuned to that kind of thing. I wasn't really looking for something to do, but 2-year waiting list sounds pretty good. And then, let's see, A couple other things I learned from that. We were required to do market studies for Jefferson County to do that. By HUD, it was going to be a HUD loan that was financing it. And the market study comes back, there's no demand. There's not near enough demand for a building like this. Well, Betty knew it was needed. I knew it was needed. And what turned out was the market study methodology, it was going out and asking the population, do we need one of these? Well, the real problem was they had never seen a facility like this, so they didn't think they needed it, and it almost killed the whole project. That the way it was, the question was asked meant that the loan was going to be denied. But we went ahead, somehow we went ahead anyway, and it was full from day one. As a matter of fact, it was built and then it's nearly built, and we had people trying to move in before the move-in date. We had trucks, and it was full just from day one. And we found the same thing in other towns in southeast Iowa. So there's something to, market studies are very tricky. You ask the right question in the right way, you might learn what you really need to know. If you don't ask it in the right way, you may think you know, but you don't really know. Another little trick in that deal was we had a stock market crash and an economic crash in 2008, and we're sitting there, and we had loans that helped us get it done, and it was a terrible moment. The bank called and said, "We got to see you." And they come in, they looked like undertakers. There were three of them dressed in black. "We're going to call your loan." And this was some millions, And, well, why? We're in covenants. We've never missed anything. We're a good business. And it really was inconceivable why this would happen. And they were saying, well, the thing is, the government's increased our, let's say, equity requirements, so we have to have more cash on hand. And, well, we don't want to go to our worst customers. They can't stand any stress, and they don't even have the money. We're not going to go to our best customers that we've had for 20 years. So, and actually, we would have been killed, and I would have been out of luck totally because I'd signed for the loans. If it hadn't been for one young guy at the bank, Cedar Rapids Bank, said, "I think I know a way to take care of you." And he very much bonded with us and went, anyway, put it together so we could stay until it got refinanced with the government. But that was a truly near miss. It truly would have been a disaster for Sunnybrook and me. And there you go. So by the time we were done, we had 6 facilities, about 350,000 square feet, 6 towns. We had 400 residents. And anyway, that all happened in every town. It was pretty much the same way. The market studies missed the boat because they asked the wrong question, and they prospered, and it stayed prospered the whole time. Okay. So those are some travails of how you start a business, how you really put yourself on the line. And the first 2, it wasn't my money. I was just manager. Disaster enough if they went bad, but the second 2, it was my money. It was on the line. I was making all the decisions, and that's a wonderful place to be as an entrepreneur. That's where you're at. So that is... And then I just have some final thoughts for entrepreneuring. So if I ever get to talk to anyone, first questions I ask, what the hell are you selling and who are you trying to sell it to? Now that sounds simple, but it is not. You think about, you're not selling an item, you're not selling a car, you're selling a bundle of services and a bundle of items, and where you can get it. Can you get it serviced? Can you take it now, or you have to wait? That's the extended product. And everyone needs to understand what they're selling. And it's not a piece of hardware. It's not just a service. It's the whole bundle of things that you're offering. That's extended product. If I ever get to anyone wants to talk to me, I will probe that. That'll be the first thing. What are you going? And then to whom? Well, there's often a lot of channels. There's an intermediary, and then there's an end user, and then there's the people that service it, and who are you actually selling it to, and then what are they like, and what do they need? And you can build your business plan around those two questions. What are you actually selling, and to whom are you selling it? Unless that's clear, it's very hard to be clear about your business. And then other basic question, what makes you think you can sell this extended product for more than it'll cost you to make it? Now that's and you really got to have some significant margin to make any business go and thrive. So what is that margin? Where does it come from? What makes you think you can sell it for more than it costs to make it? Really basic. And then we've got three kind of, I'll call them big issues, things that can upset your business and change your life and change the course of the business or end the business. It's big picture issues that are foreseeable, but you just didn't look. There's some big picture issues that you maybe could detect if you really thought about it smart, and issues that can't be predicted. You got to be prepared for all those and have a way to not be snuffed out, because small businesses can be snuffed out real quick. We got one story about deals. Make sure they're win-win, but that makes them stable. If someone's on the end of the day of a deal, it's not working for them, they'll find a way to get out of it. I don't care how honest they are, they have to get out of it. If it's not serving their needs long-term, it's not going to work. And put it in writing, that's simple, but so many times we get, I understood it this way, I understood it that way. Just discipline ourselves to put it in writing. And some people that you do deals with are malevolent. That's relatively few. Some are confused. They don't know why they're doing the deal. And some are the right partner. Now that's really very important to, even if they're giving you money, you need to understand, unless you're walking away from something. But if you're going to be in a deal for years to come, you need to serve their needs as well as your needs. And then we have deals with employees. You have vendors, you have customers, you have employees. So I'll give you another bad deal. This was in Boston. We were a wonderful company, and we offered employees tuition assistance in Boston. That was not cheap. So they were going to school. This guy was going to school for 2 years. He was my marketing manager. We were friends. We were good friends, and we worked together every day. And I knew he was going to school. He was really appreciative. Thank you. We paid all his stuff and his tuitions and his books and everything he had to do. And then he goes, got my degree. Congratulations, that's wonderful. He said, by the way, I'm leaving tomorrow. Oh, well, God bless you. You know, we made a deal, and you work good. Well, okay, so where are you going? To our competitor. There was exactly one competitor. And that was a bad deal. Now, why didn't I know? It was it was damaging. It turned out to be very damaging. I hadn't somehow taken the time to get intimate with him or get to know he'd let it slip somewhere, somehow, but I didn't. So that happened. So, and then I come up with this idea for this, that entrepreneuring is a 360-degree deal. You've got opportunities on every side. You've got risks and hazards on every side. You've got to be alert all the time. And it will take your whole self, everything you've got, to do an entrepreneurial venture. And that's the joy of it, but that is what, in my view, that's what you get when you get into this. So it sounds like fun, right? So.
Why would everyone?
Okay, so anyone want to talk?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Thinking about maybe a hierarchy of distilling three principles from what you've spoken in terms of what does an entrepreneur really have to, what are the questions an entrepreneur has to ask themselves, other than the very beautiful sequence you said, can I sell this for more than but inside themselves, in your own gut, what are those elements?
Only so many entrepreneur prospects, because they got to be. Oh, okay. There's only so many prospects in the population. They're on a fringe, in a good fringe, but they have to find this attractive. And one day I was in Creative Edge, and I worked at that so many, all day, every day. Why am I doing this? What is it that's making this fit for me? And I was joyful the whole time. I never thought of not doing it, but I come up with, well, here's the five things that I would ask, everyone ought to ask themselves, because they're going to put themselves into it. It's probably going to be difficult, not necessarily, but probably. So I said, okay, well, I was always the kid in my neighborhood that had the rock collection. Rocks, I don't know why, but I was just fascinated with business with rocks. Somehow I love big, heavy, noisy machinery. I think my father had something to do with that, because he was an engineer and sold that kind of stuff. And something that is, I somehow love public art and architecture, and I don't know why, I just always responded to it when I would go to a city, and I'd take pictures of it, even way before this. I said, well, public art and architecture. And then I was, okay, something that's never been done before. So that was part of me. I didn't want to do something that had ever been done before. And then the fifth one needs to be really difficult, but not too difficult, just not killing difficult, but really difficult. And so that was a moment for me. I was sitting there, that's why I'm doing this, and I'm comfortable with it. Everyone else will have a different thing, but they have to be similarly profoundly motivated. That's what it takes. In my view, that's what it takes.
Which is the reason why the 5 Suits didn't do all that well.
Yeah, I mean, they thought it was a job. Fine, there's a place and a time for people to have jobs, but they want to go home at 5. They want to do their work, but that's not entrepreneurialism. Yeah. So if I get in front of everyone, I'll ask that. Yes, sir.
Is there a defining moment or circumstance where you know the venture is going to work out or not?
It gets obvious, yes, and that's when it gets easier, let's say, rather than harder. I guess that's sort of a thought, and things kind of fall into place. But I bet everyone's different. Every single one's different.
Is it a lot of it intuitive, you think?
Well, an awful lot of it is the money there. I mean, is the money flowing? Are you able to pay your bills? Are you able to pay your employees? And, that's a great moment. I mean, that happens either early or down the line or never. It's a heartwarming feeling. Sir?
Good afternoon. I was wondering, with a case of my own, in fact,
Yes.
when I try to share an idea with, like friend circle,
Say that again?
when I try to share
Yep.
idea of a business
Yep.
with a friend circle,
With your friend circle, okay.
friend circle,
Yeah.
which is somehow niche for a certain industry segment, and then try to raise if that's a viable idea to work on. Most of the time, I find a comment like, the stereotype saying that if this was viable, why not a big company would already execute it?
Well,
Why, or like this is not already a business. This kind of
why hasn't someone else done it?
yeah.
Okay.
This kind of stigma is all around and constantly try to demotivate us.
Yeah. I think the real story is those big companies can't do this.
Exactly.
It's
And
not
this-
it's not where new ideas come from in general.
Uh-huh.
And so if you can answer the questions about it being viable and it's doable, then what often happens is you do that. You create the value, you create the enterprise, and the big company will show up and want to buy it from you.
After we are successful.
Yes, and that's where you get paid out. I mean, that's where a lot of entrepreneurial ventures get to.
My second question to it is like, in that particular scenario, how do we build up a business case and then talk to the potential investors, saying that there is still a business potential with that niche interest?
How do you develop the business
Yeah.
idea?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of it is internal. Again, you have to think it through and find a way to believe you can make it for less than you can charge for it. You can then start writing it down. Now, I truly believe most business plans or ideas should be able to be summarized in 1 or 2 pages. And if I was working with you, I'd say, let's get the 2 pages right. Then you can spin out the profit and loss. You can spin out the money and what investment is required. It's the concept, I think, that counts.
Thank you.
Kind of like an elevator pitch.
An elevator pitch, well, the right one means you've thought it through and you believe it in your gut.
That's how I saw your 2 pages. It's kind of like
It's like that, yeah. Yeah, you don't get, you can make it complicated, but, I feel if you get the essence of it, then you can think about going forward. You don't want to waste your time, you don't want to waste the investor money, you don't want to put yourself at risk until you really think you have a game to play. Okay, so here we are. Okay.